have a quorum today, it appears. There are only 4 of us. We've had a couple of personal issues with board members and a couple of business issues, and we will not have a quorum today. Now, because these are public hearings, they've been advertised as public hearings, we do still want to give everybody who's on the agenda a chance to make their presentation if they wish, but all these items are going to have to come up again in a later meeting. They'll be published again, and all the items will come up in a later meeting. So if you prefer not to wait, that's fine too. We'll stay and we'll hear the presentations and we'll hear any comments from the public on each of these items, but we're not going to be able to take any action on any of the items. So we apologize for that, but that's where we are this morning. So as you please, we will be here for each of the timetables, again, to hear that presentation, but if you prefer just to leave now and be back when your project is advertised again, we can do that. With that said, I should take a minute and introduce a new board member. Mr. Thomas Grimm is with us for the first time. Would you care to take a minute and just tell everybody what your background is?
Yeah, I'm a civil engineer with Dow HKM. I've been in Dickinson just a short while. I come from Billings, Montana. In Billings, I have 6 years of experience on the zoning commission there. I'm married. I have 5 kids. They're in the public schools here, and we just really enjoy Dickinson.
So you're the reason for at least the growth of 7 in Dickinson.
Yeah, that's right. I'm responsible for 7.
Well, welcome. Welcome to the board and welcome to Dickinson, Tom. Mr. Catan, the planning administrator, has asked that we delay agenda item number 1 just for a few minutes. So we are going to wait a few minutes for the second agenda item. So with that, we'll pause here for a few minutes, and we'll be back at 7:25 and hear agenda item number 2. And agenda item number 1 will be heard. It'll just be a few minutes later. For those of you who came in just in the last few minutes, you probably have figured out that we do not have a quorum today. So we're going to do the presentations and take public comment on each of the agenda items, but we're not going to be able to take any action on any of the agenda items. We've pushed agenda item number 1 back into the agenda a ways, so we will move to agenda item number 2, which is a rezoning request in the Northern Heights subdivision. Do we have somebody here who would like to make some comments and present that project? Morning.
Good morning. My name is John Welsick from Cadamus, Lee & Jackson. I'm representing the firm that's looking at developing this land. What we're looking for at this point is to get this property rezoned to R2. They're looking at putting fourplexes on the site. Now, after conversations with the city planner, some of the plan is going to, I guess, change substantially as to what's going to be done in the interior. The garages are actually going to be tucked under. Comments from the city have been that they would like to see this be a public road, which means we'll have to go through a platting process to prepare it. But for their due diligence, they were looking for, I guess, at this point, at this meeting, looking for some comments as in regards to if R2 zoning in this area would be okay. I guess based on what it's surrounded by, it is surrounded on 3 sides by Cooks addition. Across the street is Harif property. I know they're looking at the possibility of annexation, and that would end up being R1 or R2. So I guess that's all I have for comments.
Do you want to describe the zoning that exists currently around this tract?
Presently, to the north of the tract is R3, and to the east of it is an R2, larger lots, I think, and then it's R2 to the south, which would be, I guess at this point, what I've seen on the plat, that is not broken up into any small pieces. It's just one large lot. And I guess that's as much as I know as where they have gone on that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any commissioners have any questions for Mr. Wilczek? Any questions at all? Anybody from the public who would like to comment on this proposal? Anybody from the public like to comment on the Northern Heights proposal? Okay, well, Mr. Wilczek, we will close the public hearing. I'm not sure exactly what we're going to do with timing to consider all these projects, all these agenda items, but staff will get a hold of you and we'll let you know what. We appreciate you being here.
Okay. Is it a good possibility that they'll just get moved to October, or?
I think there's good possibility. We've talked about some of the things, the final plats, maybe we can try to do those a little bit earlier, but we're not going to know that for a few days here.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Okay, our next agenda item is not scheduled until 7:35, so we'll pause again for a couple of minutes here. So agenda item number 3, which is a request for a home occupation permit in a residence at 114th Avenue Southwest. Do we have someone here to present that project?
Good morning. My name is Larry Robinson. I've been a CPA here in Dickinson for the last 35-plus years. And earlier this year, we entered a little bit unusual situation. I had moved my business about 4 years ago, about 3 blocks from here, and on a long-term expectation to be there. And lo and behold, earlier this year, our building has a for sale sign on it, totally unannounced to us, unexpected. Our tenants in our building are 30-day, month-to-month tenants. And my primary business, which now is basically a mom-and-pop operation, my wife and myself, and I'm getting close to where I'm, anticipating retirement probably within the next 8 to 10 years. And under the current situation, if the building would sell, I suspect I would be evicted. And in fairness to myself and to my customers, I would like to get a location that I know will be stable through the end of my career. And one of the alternatives we're looking at, like I said, is to put it in our home, because we like Dickinson and tend to spend a good share of our retirement years here also. But to accommodate that, we're requesting, I guess, the zoning allowance to put my tax and accounting office into my home. Again, primarily, my business is heavily seasonal, January to April 15th. I do pretty much by appointment only. So traffic flow is usually one client maybe is there while another one comes. Don't foresee that as a problem in the area. I do know there are homes on our subdivision now that are multifamily, which I don't think is in compliance with the current zoning either. Don't foresee it to be a problem. I don't know if any neighbors are here to object or not, but just time is of the essence too, because I need to notify the clients if I'm going to relocate also. So it didn't help that we don't have a quorum today, but I know that you guys will do your best to accommodate, and appreciate the work that you guys do for the city and the county. And that, I guess, if any questions, if not, just appreciate the time this morning to plead my case.
Thanks, Mr. Robinson.
Yeah, thank you.
Anybody have questions or comments? I think I noticed in the materials you submitted, you are going to do an addition to your home to accommodate?
Whether that can get done this season or not, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Any questions? Okay, anybody from the public who would like to comment on this proposal? Any comments from the public? Staff have any comments, do you know, Mr. Soren?
I'm unaware of any at
Okay.
this point.
Okay. Okay, can Mr. Robinson leave here feeling that at least the four of us probably don't have any great concerns? We'll probably have to see you again at a later meeting. We'll close the public hearing. Thank you for being here, and we'll go from there. Okay, again, our next agenda item, agenda item number 4, is scheduled at 7:45, so we will wait a few minutes here again. To rezone a tract of land from CC and P to PUD, this is the St. Joseph's Hospital site in West Dickinson. Who will like to present for the hospital? Mr. Raymond.
Yes, good morning. I'm Reed Raymond, the President and CEO at St. Joseph's Hospital. And this morning I'd like to introduce our project lead, Lee Hantho. Lee comes to us through Align Healthcare, and Lee's expertise in this area, so I'm going to let Lee go ahead and present this project to you this morning.
Good.
Good morning, thank you. The hospital has assembled this 72-plus acres through acquisitions of 2 different pieces of property, all of which now is zoned, I believe, primarily residential. The goal of the PUD application is to take the entire 72 acres and convert it into space that would be used for healthcare services, as well as some potential commercial use on that. At this time, the only specifics that are planned on the property, which would be to the east end of the property, would be the new hospital, which will be approximately 100,000 square feet, and a new medical office building, which will be attached and integral to the hospital. That'll be a 3-story building, and that will be approximately 77,000 square feet at this point. I believe the road structure that we're requesting has been laid out in the PUD, and the time frame on the work that's being anticipated there is the initial building plans for the foundation and site work on the medical office building have been submitted to the city now, but we'll need to get through the replatting purpose in order to get a building permit. Goal for time is to be able to start construction by the end of October, to have the medical office building open by next summer on that, or late summer. And I'll be happy to try and answer any questions. If not, Craig is here who can answer the more technical things about the PUD.
Okay, so the request today is for the rezoning, and it looks like you will have to be back for the replatting
Yes.
part of this process. Okay, any questions for Mr. Hantho?
No.
Any questions, comments? Thank you, Mr. Hantho. We'll open the public hearing. Anybody from the public have any comments or questions on this PUD request for St. Joseph's Hospital? Anybody from the public? Okay, there are no comments from the public, so we'll close the public hearing. Any staff comments? Mr. Soren?
As far as engineering goes, I guess, with regard to the project, you know, we are looking at some of the street access points to Fairway. I know they're looking to change some of the alignments of Empire. Currently, I believe what's been proposed is removing Empire from its connection to the business loop. We had looked at an option of still connecting it to the business loop, but moving it farther south from the interchange to avoid some future issues that could arise at that point. I think we're still in discussions about how that's all going to come together, looking at potentially a traffic study to help us determine how that all comes together. We are looking at this project in conjunction with the ones across the street to the south, which are also looking at access points on Fairway. Other than that, as he did say, there's currently a plat there which, in order to get a building permit, does need to get redone. Otherwise, they're building within public right-of-ways that are currently existing, and we're trying to work through some of those issues as well. So,
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say, there will be some details to work out through the PUD process as we go forward here.
yeah, whether it's through the PUD, but certainly through the development process of a replat and or the building
Okay.
process.
Okay. Any more comments from commissioners? I have a hunch that the concept of PUD at least is not going to be an issue for us, at least for those of us here today. Okay, again, we'll probably have to ask you back. Thank you for being here, and
Thank you.
we'll go forward from here. Thank you much. Okay, again, our next agenda item is scheduled for 8 o'clock. So we'll recess again for a few minutes. Number 5, which is a preliminary plat for the Rolling Hills subdivision located in southwest Dickinson. Who is presenting? Mr. Prosif?
My name's Bob Prosiv. I'm with Interstate Engineering. I'm kind of the default representative for this. The developer and design team was notified that possibly there wouldn't be a quorum, so they didn't make the trip to do this, so I'm here to field any questions as best as possible, or take back any revisions or comments that the board may have.
Okay, and this is the project that I think we just recently did a rezoning request to PUD
Yes.
for a number of, are there 12 plexes, I believe, or
Yes.
something like that. Okay, thank you. Bob, any questions from commissioners? The plat is pretty straightforward, one lot and block. Anybody have questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll open the public hearing and ask if there's anybody from the public who'd like to comment on this preliminary plat. Anybody would like to comment on the preliminary plat for the Rolling Hills subdivision? If there are no comments, we will close the public hearing. Any staff comments? Mr. Soren?
The only comment I would add to it, when we looked at this the last time, there were some questions about right-of-way on the south side. This plat does show that we're getting the right-of-way that we need for the extension of 8th Street through that, or if we needed it for widening for future development there. State Avenue, we've already got the right-of-way in place and actually some defined access points, and as we continue to move forward with this development, we'll be continuing to watch how we access that street to make sure traffic will continue to flow properly. So.
Okay, thank you. The only other thing I would add is that I did have a little bit of a conversation with Mr. Corton before the meeting this morning. This plat might fit the new definition we have for a minor subdivision, and we might be able to move it along a little bit more efficiently here. He's going to check on that, but you may want to touch base with him in a few days and see if that's the case or not. And again, I have a hunch that the 4 commissioners present see this as pretty straightforward and pretty routine. Has park requirements have been taken care of, have been satisfied here? Yeah, okay. Okay. Okay, nothing else from any commissioners? Thank you, Mr. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Prosiv. Okay, our next agenda item, number 6, is scheduled for 8:15. So we will recess until then. For the I-94 Industrial Park 3rd Edition, just east of Dickinson. Who will be presenting for this item? Mr. Shank.
Thank you. Andrew Schrank with Highlands Engineering. Representing the owner of the final plat, I-94 Industrial Park 3rd Edition. This is located directly east of the current I-94 Industrial Park. Consists of approximately 17 acres. We've made several revisions since we last saw this plat. We have combined the 4 lots on the north side to create 2 larger lots. We've also added a hammerhead versus the right-of-way extending all the way through the property. After further discussions with Southwest Water, we were not able to obtain the needed right-of-way from them to continue this road through the property. We have received a few comments from staff early this week, one of them being increasing the width of the hammerhead, so we're going to add 20 feet to each side of that hammerhead. The other being that they would like to see Lot 38 replatted with this plat, so we'll be making that revision as well. We're also working on finalizing our stormwater report for the site as well. Any comments you have would be appreciated.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Shank? No questions. We'll open the public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Shank. Anybody from the public want to comment on this final plat? Anybody from the public? If there are no comments from the public, we will close the public hearing. I guess I have a couple comments. I did not realize until yesterday that the right-of-way shown through Lot 38 was not a street already. I was under the impression it was already a street, so we will need to replat that. And I wonder with that change going into a different plat, if that's going to trigger a new publishing, because that plat boundary is going to be expanded now.
Commissioner Jackson, I would agree with that with the change in the boundary, that may implicate other property owners who need to be notified. Depends, if it doesn't implicate other property owners, we probably wouldn't need to publish it, but we'll have to go back and look through that and see whether other property owners would be within that boundary.
Okay. I do think that's the right way to do this, to include that Lot 38 in the plat, and so it would actually be a replat of that particular lot. Personally, I'm also still concerned that we're not running that right-of-way to the north somehow. I realize that we're not going to be able to extend a street right now. I don't know how the rest of you feel, and if Mr. Soren wants to comment on that at all, but I still have that concern. I realize we're not going to build a street through there currently, but anybody else have feelings about that? Mr. Soren, any thoughts?
Well, I would just add a couple comments regarding it, I guess. You know, originally, we did have them run it through and check with Southwest Water, who owns the property to the north. I believe they've declined the ability to continue the road through their property at this point. Currently, that is an unplatted parcel that a water vendor is located on. And, you know, someday in the future, I certainly would see that would come back for development, and at that point, you could capture right away. I do know early on in the plat, they did take the road all the way through, but because of the dead end issue, there were some concerns, and that's how they came back now with this one, as Andrew had stated, and put the hammerhead on there, you know, kind of at the direction after the last meeting. So, you know, I think looking forward to the future, there is a plat to the north of this that already has right-of-way in here. You've got the piece in between that one and this one that doesn't. It would make sense to try and plan to keep right-of-way through. But they did change it, I think, after our comments at the last meeting, though.
Well, and I think the hammerhead is appropriate for now, because we know we won't build a street through there. But it seems that we should capture the right-of-way in this platting. The rest of you have any thoughts? You disagree with that, or? Mr. Shank, I think work with staff. I know you've been up here before us a couple times already, and it's taking a little while with this plat, but probably going to take a little while longer with the replat necessary now. So if you just continue working on those two items with staff. Okay? Anything else? Thank you much. Mr. Croton, are we ready to go back to agenda item number 1?
Agenda item 1, if you want to take public testimony, you can. At this point, just the discussions with Mike, and Mike could come up if he likes, or or Harvey, the applicants for that. Obviously, you can't make a decision today without a quorum. We've discussed the issue of their rezone with respect to our current wellhead ordinance, and I think at this point, we're going to have further discussion. So if you want to take testimony, you can, but at this point, since no decision can be made, we're going to have some continual discussions with that. I don't know if Mr. Cook or Harvey wants to add to that, but I think that's kind of where we're at this
I
point.
think we should ask the developer to explain the request for agenda item number 1 and then take public comments. So who would like to address this agenda item number 1?
Good morning, gentlemen. Mike Cook is my name. I'm the developer of Cook Mental Hills 4th Division. After talking with Ed this morning, I think we're going to kind of sit back and play with the property a little bit. But to answer your question, Gene, Mr. Jackson, the reason we asked for the rezoning was we have a buyer that has bought the properties, which would be lots 1 through 5 in Block 11, and 15 through 19 in Block 11. So they wanted to take 13 and 14, 7 and 8, and do those in an R2 also, to tie in with what they were going to be doing on the other lots. And because of the size of them, they just felt it would be easier to work that in with their other R2 property that they purchased. So with what went on this morning, we're just going to do some re-maneuvering and see which way it would be more feasible to do this. So that particular request, again, we're going to hold. The other request was up on Block 4, Lot 1. And right now, that is a CC zoning. And the people that have bought Block 4, Lot 2, the adjoining piece to the east, want to get that to where they can use part of that to tie in with their R3 development, but yet they were talking about doing some kind of a strip center on the front piece, which abuts State. So changing it from the CC to the LC does allow R3 to go into the LC. So that's the request that we'd be asking for on that one.
Okay, and you're going to continue to move that part of the request along?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Okay, any questions for Mr. Cook? Anything for Mr. Cook? Okay, thank you. We will open the public hearing. Do we have anybody here from the public that wants to comment on either of these proposed rezoning items? Please.
Janet Perkle, I'm an adjoining neighbor to the property. I just wanted to state a couple of items here. I know there's no action here today. However, I have some concerns with how this is taking place. I don't know that you recall that our neighborhood was not involved or notified of the zoning last time. We were left out of the situation, which we were very upset about. We had some apologies. However, now I would like to speak. It appears that the zoning is increasing. Our density is increasing around our lots. We are rural residential out there, and we wanted a nice, quiet place to live out there when we, and through the master plan, I was at that meeting, and I was assured that we would be contacted, which we weren't. And now, it's not that they're moving things in, it's the density is increasing. That is my concern here. It's, as an overall master plan, you agreed that this was going to be the density, and now it's increasing again. And I can see in 6 months they're going to change something else, and it's going to increase and increase and increase. And I guess that's our concerns out there. That, you know, we want to know, we want to let our feelings known. Whether or not you care is, you know, but at least we brought it forth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Perkle. Anybody else from the public? Anybody else want to comment? If there are none, we will close the public hearing. Any discussion or comments from commissioners? It appears that there's probably more conversation to be had with staff on the one request. Okay? Any other comments from staff on the other part of the request, Mr. Croton, or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. With respect to the CC to LC, that actually limits some of the commercial activity going to a more multifamily next to further up, further away. You know, to me, they would need to come through a special use permit in order to do that. We could evaluate it accordingly. You know, my initial feel with the commercial around it and being closer to 34th, that would probably work, but obviously we'd have to see their special use permit if they wanted to propose residential on that piece. The other piece, we'll just have to discuss more in greater detail with Mr. Cook and see where he ultimately wants to go with respect to some other development regulations. So those are the comments that I have this morning. Obviously, I was in discussions with him over the first several items. I just want to mention to the public and also to the surveyors and engineers that are here that we have revised our subdivision ordinance, and I have attached on the back table our new development applications, our minor plat, our major plat, preliminary, and also our major plat for final with the new checklist. I would encourage you to pick those up. They also are available online. We will stringently apply those new standards. We have lengthened the process for approval of that to allow staff the time that we need to significantly or sufficiently review the applications. So it's going from a 30-day to a 60-day process, and we're going to get comments from the adjoining agencies. So those applications with the checklist, you need to make sure that you conform to that, otherwise the application will be considered incomplete. So just wanted them to be aware of that, and as they leave, pick those up, because those are our new subdivision regulations from this point forward.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Catine. Any other comments on this proposal? Okay, we'll have to have you back for both items. Thank you very much. We will move to agenda item number 7, which is to consider a final plat for the Clear Creek subdivision located in northwest Dickinson. Mr. Tews?
I'm Troy Tews with Lightteller Johnson, here to represent Clear Creek. I've been before you several times. I'm aware of 7 comments from staff, as well as some dimension issues that talked about with you, Mr. Jackson. I'm confident that we can get those 7 issues taken care of prior to the next meeting.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Tews? You know, I know you can get those items taken care of. They've been on the plat the last couple of times we've seen it, and you know, I guess I have to say I just don't think we should have to look at or for those things. Staff shouldn't have to look for those things that are really very simple. But I know you can get them taken care of. If there are no comments or questions, we'll open the public hearing. Unless you have something else, Mr. Tews? No. We'll open the public hearing for this final plat of Clear Creek Edition. Anybody from the public have any comments on the Clear Creek Edition final plat? Any comments from the public? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Any further comments by either staff or commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I forwarded my recommended conditions of approval to Mr. Tews. I presume that there is none of those issues with respect that we need to discuss at this meeting. Is that right? Okay, that's fine.
And other than the technical insufficiencies of the plat, I would presume that Mr. Tews can leave here probably feeling like things are okay with the 4 of us as to the concept and all. Okay, thank you very much. Our next agenda item number 8 is scheduled for 8:35, so we'll wait a couple of minutes here. Number 8, which is a final plat for the replat of a portion of the Country Oaks Estates Second Edition. Who would like to present that project to the board? Mr. Bullinger.
I'm Gary Bullinger. I own that Country Oaks. I'm just requesting the final plat of Block 6, the north half of Block 6, of to get it replotted. There was part of it that wasn't replotted. And I think Ed called me. There was some issues with some square footage in some of the lots, but we got that resolved, so everything should be in place.
Yeah, I think that was the only question we had at the last meeting. Any questions for Mr. Bullinger? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We will open the public hearing for this final plat. Anybody from the public like to comment on the final plat? Any comments from the public? If not, we'll close the public hearing. Any staff comments? I expect this is pretty routine at this point.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to have the applicant consider revising the name to a unique name. I mean, technically that name works, but It's a very long, confusing portion of that. My suggestion would be, try to use whatever unique name that has not been used, and then that description can be afterwards, preceding it, because that would be it. It could be Country Oaks Third, Country Oak Estates Third, whatever, that's a unique name, so that when it's referred from this point on in the future, it's not referred as a long legal, which is difficult for people to understand. It would be a definitive one, like Ed Estates or something like that. Please don't use my name on that, but, something of that nature that would be unique to itself, would be easily to refer to. So that would be my suggestion to you. It's not a requirement, but for clarification, it makes more sense to do it that way. Excuse me?
Take off all the footage part of it?
No, you would have that, you would have to talk to a surveyor on it. Basically, that part where it says final, it would replat of all that would come after the name. It would say consisting of, and then you describe that under the title for that. That would be my suggestion to you. But give me a call if you decide to do that, and I could walk you through the heading issue to make sure that's conforming. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else? Okay, and again, I assume Mr. Bullinger can feel okay about the feelings of the four of us on this replat. Thanks very much, Mr. Bullinger. And our final agenda item number 9, is scheduled for 8:45. Agenda item number 9 is a final plat of the Lions Third subdivision in northeast Dickinson. I have a big board in front of me, so I can't see, but we have somebody to present the Lions Third.
I think it's nice to have the board, then we don't have to see Jeff behind it, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. Name is Jeff Schauman with Arista Development, presenting the final plat for Lions Third Edition. I've handed out, prior to the public hearing, some adjustments. There were some technical issues to the plat that were brought to my attention this week. We have made those corrections and included them on your handout, as well as on the big board in case anyone wanted to look in detail at that. I can go through each of the items specifically, but I believe your city planner does have my reactions and comments about how we've attended to each item specifically. With that said, here today, I understand you can't take formal action, but here today hoping we can address any outstanding issues so that at the next meeting it's more of a consent item than anything. So with that, I'll be happy to address any questions that the commissioners might have.
Any questions for Mr. Schauman?
Mr. Chairman, I have some from the email that I sent you, Jeff. Just wanted to clarify a couple of issues. You could see the pink on here, so don't get overly alarmed, but they're more question issues. On the bottom, you refer a negative access easement. We've never used that term before. I think what you're probably, the term you're using is obviously referring to that 1-foot non-access easement. And maybe just get rid of that and just clarify and just say the 1-foot non-access easement, on the reference issue. I don't want to leave that up for interpretation for somebody to come after me or whatever, and if we've never really used that term before, so. And then under public use, in the, under the owner's certificate, I think about the second or third one down, if you could see this, it says public use, but it does not say in perpetuity or forever. I know that at times there's discussions, how long does that go, and it's left up for interpretation. And I know that Commissioner Jackson and I have kind of talked about that. I think just for that one, it could be easy if you want to put forever or in perpetuity with respect to the public use that you're talking about up there.
Okay.
Just to clarify that so there's no ambiguity for the future. Throughout the document, you show drainage and utility easements. are you proposing both, or is it just, you're just kind of doing all-inclusive at that point?
The way we've handled plats in the past is to have both. Frequently, we'll have some rear yard drainage, which will be a series of catch basins with a small drainage pipe. That provides then for ample opportunity to still get power, gas, cable, telephone, all within those easement areas. So we just do it as an all-encompassing easement so that we don't have to come back in the future and re-record on individual property owners.
My suggestion would be for you, though, if you're not going to use it for drainage, because then you allow somebody to come through in the future to remove that. I mean, if that's not your intention to have that multifaceted, you don't want to leave it open for somebody to say, I could use that, and then come by and use that easement for that reason. So I'll leave that up to you, but instead of leaving it open-ended, just to avoid that issue in the future. Let's see. One last thing that I do have is you talk about, you have an access easement. If you could see this portion here, it's right when you come off the plat off the road. I presume that's for, and I saw your overall concept plan, is that for the emergency fire access, and so you had a portion on this lot and a portion on the other?
Absolutely correct. And within the PUD amenity plan, it notates that we will also dedicate an access easement on the north lot, which would be Lot 1, Block 2 of Lyons Second Edition. So there's a total of 30 feet. I believe fire requires 20. The fire chief has left, but we did have an opportunity to talk about that prior to the hearing.
Just for clarification, just make sure that that is clear on that one there. And just the boundaries between Block 1 and 2, a thicker line of where that would separate the two. I believe Tract B is the demarcation for that. And I guess the question would be, would Tract B within, would that be in Block 2 or Block 1? So just a thicker line there, just for clarification purposes. Other than that, I think that's the only issues with respect to your plat itself. You and I have been working on the PUD portion and the PUD plan. And overall, I think the project is good. I don't know if you have any additional comments with respect to staff's proposed conditions that you want to address at this point.
Can you restate that last question? I apologize.
I don't know if you have, with respect to the questions that I had recommended, do you have any questions or clarifications?
No, sir. There'd only be one, I guess, clarification. It was in my email to you, but there was a condition that Lot 1, Block 3, which is this large light industrial lot in the southwest corner, that it would be contingent upon improvement of the road. I presume that means the improvement of 4th Avenue, which has now occurred. So,
Okay.
nodding your head, so I believe that's correct.
Yeah, I just needed to clarify that issue there. So it may be improved. I don't know if it's been accepted yet for the city. If it hasn't been accepted, I just leave that as a condition.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Catan. The only other thing I'd add, I just noticed it, Mr. Schauman, is that floodplain. I think you're required to show elevation contours in that floodplain.
Commissioner Jackson, floodplain A does not have indicated elevations within it.
No, I understand that, but I think state law still requires that you show the elevation contours of the ground within the floodplain. I realize you don't have the elevation of the flood itself, but you have to show the ground contours in that area.
Okay.
Okay, anything else? Thank you, Mr. Schauman. We'll open the public hearing for the Lyons Third subdivision. Do we have anybody from the public who wants to comment on the Lyons Third? Any comments from the public? Lyons Third. Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing. I suspect that with the satisfaction of some of these technical things we've been talking about, that we can give Mr. Schauman an indication that at least these board members are okay with the subdivision. Park District is satisfied with the residential part of it. And anything else, Mr. Catan? Okay, Mr. Shulman, thank you. We'll have to have you back. Okay, the next agenda item is not a project, but take a few minutes to discuss some thoughts I think that Mr. Catan has about changing the acreage requirements for rural residential development in the future. Mr. Catan, you want to tell us what we're thinking about there?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to discuss that. As we're going through our comprehensive plan, and the Planning Commission members are aware, we've been addressing the issues of land uses and lot sizes, and we're coming to a very critical juncture as part of our comp plan. On October 1st, we will have the 3 growth scenarios that we are proposing, and we've invited all the members of the Planning Commission, along with city staff, the consultant from Academist Lee Jackson, and then also City Commission between 2 and 4 o'clock to hear staff's recommendation and also from the consultant, and hopefully have a consensus to select one of those 3 growth scenarios. The growth scenario would be a boundary. Within that, we are anticipating to have urban services, sewer, water, and urban roads to be provided within that 10-year period, or at least the best that we can do within that 10-year period. Also, that would be a demarcation, if you want to use the term, for urban land uses. And then the opposite side of that, we're not looking at having urban land uses beyond that. So the question arises, under our current code, if you're outside of our city limits, you're allowed in rural residential to potentially have minimum lot sizes of 1 acre. The ag is at 5 acres. When you look at the current or the existing and historic land use patterns in the county outside of the city limits, you're looking at big lots. And I think that we need to be cognizant and aware of that and try to preserve that quality. People move out to the county, they want to have bigger lots, and instead of having the continuation of what I call sprawl, in which you have more urban-related rural land uses, I'm proposing that if you're not within that urban service area, that we should change the rural residential from 1 acre to 5 or 10 acre minimums, and then ag should go from 5 acres to 40 acre minimums. That's more reflective of our current land use pattern. That would be a dramatic shift, obviously, but we have went through our comprehensive plan. We've looked at it holistically within the city and also within our extraterritorial zone. So I would like to see, if there is any desire from the Planning Commission to look at those increase in the lot sizes, instead of having a transition zone between the county outside of our ETZ and the city limits, of allowing a in-between land use pattern, which is not beneficial for all. When you look at 1 to 5 acre lots, there is, outside of the city limits, many people move into those thinking, yes, that, it's in the county, and they want to have agricultural land uses. They want to have cows and pigs and chickens or whatever on the case, and their neighbor is wanting to have more of a country setting. And I deal with land use conflicts of that all the time. So, I'm looking at that area should either be urban or really very rural agricultural in nature, and those land uses should be larger in order to avoid those natural conflicts. And then you also have the side of dealing with additional roads. When you have more subdivisions and the maintenance of that, the county has always had problems with maintaining those roads, the cost associated with those services. So I would like to see if there's a desire to look at increasing those lot sizes if you're outside of that urban service area, urban service boundary, and see if there's a desire for that. I think it makes sense. It's more reflective of our current land use pattern. I think our community outside of our city limits, you could drive just outside of it and you see the nice agricultural setting, rural setting, and I think that we should try to preserve that as well. So the question is there any desire to increase those lot sizes to be more reflective of the historic development pattern that has occurred. Not just the one that's occurring today, but the one that's occurred over a period of time. So I'll leave that open for discussion.
The only thing I would add to that presentation is that I know that the county zoning board is currently looking at a similar change. Right now in the county, you can theoretically plat lots as small as 40,000 feet, which is about an acre. And I know that the county is likely to be changing its minimum size requirements as well. Any of you have any opinion on what Mr. Corton has brought up? Mr. Corton, one of the other things that probably comes into play in this discussion is that it's probably not too long that our jurisdiction, the city's jurisdiction, will go out 4 miles, at least in places. Once we're 25,000 people, we can extend our jurisdiction from 2 miles to 4 miles. And to me, that has some, the substance of that we need to consider also when we're thinking about what you're bringing up.
Mr. Chairman, I would agree with that. I think that there will probably be a desire from the commission that once we receive that 25,000 population in which we can, through the Century Code, extend our boundaries, go through that process with the county to extend them from 2 to 4 miles. I think that there will probably be a desire to do that. It makes sense then to have the land uses that are outside of our jurisdiction to be more rural or agricultural in nature, in order for us to not to deal with all kinds of nonconformities, lots that have been carved up that are at 1 or 3 acres that do not work for a higher land use over a period of time, because now you have the house in the middle of it where you would naturally put a road or utility easements and the rest. It makes sense to have bigger lots in order, or parcels to come back if the property owner decides, as the city's city limits expand, between a 10 and 20-year period, to have a greater potential for development, to not running into obstacles with respect to that. So,
I guess if we were not embarking on the establishment of an urban growth area, an urban growth boundary, I might think a little bit different about this question. But the fact that we are, I don't see us approving any subdivisions that are an acre lot or smaller, that aren't in that urban growth area, which means it'll probably be annexed.
I would, as staff, I would not recommend anything that's really below 5 acres, even at this point, because our urban growth area that we're doing is a permanent population that we feel, based upon our comp plan, based upon the expertise that we have from NDSU, from KLJ, for a population of 41 to 45,000. With that, our urban, the 3 proposed scenarios that we have, there's a significant fudge factor or additional allocation for residential, commercial, and industrial. So even, we're not just saying, well, we think it's 5,000 units should be during this period of time and making it definitive 5,000. We have set aside on all 3 of the scenarios, if I recall right, around 2,000 dwelling units in excess of what we anticipate, in order not to severely constrain the market and increase the housing prices. That allows us if you want to use the fudge factor of, if we are undercutting, or not undercutting, but undercounting that market, that gives us still an additional significant amount of dwelling units that can be built within those land use densities that we are proposing, or existing ones as well. So I feel that that urban service area is not so constrained. It's a very conservative estimate, and that beyond that point, there really isn't a need to have urban land uses, and they should be more indicative of the rural and agricultural land uses that we have outside of our city, and that many in our community prefer to move out in the country to live that kind of style without the city encroaching. And this is based upon a 10-year projection. You know, our comp plan is for 20 years, but the urban service area is a 10-year horizon, or that boundary is a 10-year horizon. And based upon the development that we have for this, for the oil-related industry, you know, 10 to 15 years is the projected period of growth that we have for the exploration phase. And then after that, there will be a reduction, a significant reduction in the temporary population.
Well, I think this makes sense. I think what you're suggesting makes sense. I guess I would personally tend to lean more towards the 5-acre number than the 10, but I guess I'm open to exploring both. The rest of you have any direction for Mr. Cretan?
Mr. Chairman, I would agree too. I think 5 instead of 10. A lot of it's a cost factor too. I mean, if that's basically double the acreage. But my question is I'm just wondering how this, you know, would apply. I don't know whatever happened with that development, but there was a development that was supposed to be west of town. I think it was west of like even Lakeview out there. And it looked like it probably was going to have to be rural residential. So, and that would be within the ETZ. So are you saying, because I think we were telling them the rural residential at that time was 1 acre, minimum 1 acre. So basically that minimum 1 acre would go to 5. Is that right? Okay. That's, you know, I don't know if anything's happening with that or not.
Or if it's in an urban growth area, it may end up being annexed and would be a traditional municipal subdivision.
I think the agriculture part of it, from go to 5 to 40, you know, it sounds like a lot, but for agriculture, I can't imagine you can do much on 5 acres.
I do have a question, I guess, for clarification. If you look at our zoning map, we do have a number of R1 designated zones outside of the city. Are we saying that we would not allow that outside of the growth area at this point? Because when you look at this, it talks about just a rural residential and lot size for the rural residential, but if someone wanted to come in with a 2-acre R1 development, are we saying we wouldn't allow them to do that at this point?
At this current rate, we have, I think in the last couple of commission meetings, we have denied a couple of them. We had denied that one, and we felt that was, almost 5 acres on the southeast side of town. Didn't feel that it was appropriate based upon the surrounding land uses. It would depend on where it's at, you know, with respect to that. You know, the minimum lot size is the minimum lot size, and that doesn't necessarily, that's not a granting or saying you meet that, then you get approval. We base our decisions on subdivisions, surrounding land uses, utilities, and the rest. And it's felt recently that, you know, lots that are below 5 acres with all the existing subdivisions that are in the county, when you look in our planning map, you can see a lot of pre-existing subdivisions that are 1 acre, 3 acres, and the rest that are partially filled. I know Mr. Elkin talks about that all the time, that until that allocation gets used up, why are we continually expanding these subdivisions that are not even full? Why do we continue to do that? And then the other issue comes about is Southwest Water and the water issue. You know, we got to factor that in. Why would we want to continually plat 1 acre, 2 acre subdivisions in which water is problematic? You know, in order for it to be cost effective, they probably would need, you know, depending on how they have their marketing plan, they may need to hook up to Southwest Water. Well, Southwest Water has expressed that they have limitations within their system. Those issues with newer subdivisions, hopefully we'll get their comments and we can make an informed decision if that makes sense. But otherwise, they're going to have to drill a well, individual wells, or come back with a community water system in meeting the Clean Water Act and federal regulations, and that's a difficult thing to do. You have to ensure that the water quality is there, and it's not an easy thing to do to establish a private water system. So, I think that those are issues that we all need to factor in the existing road networks that the county is providing with that.
I think to answer Mr. Soren's question, that really is what we're saying here, is that the only truly R1 subdivision we'd be approving would be something that would be in the urban growth area and would be annexed. Otherwise, we would not be. I think that's what this would come down to, correct?
We do have some R1. I mean, obviously, that recent annexation, they were already there. I guess the question would come about, if somebody within the urban service area had, 60, 80 acres, and they didn't want to develop it at an urban level, they wanted to come in with greater than, let's say if it was all abutting around it as R1 and they wanted to do 1 acre minimums, no, that's fine. They can have bigger lots. We would require that if that's an urban service area with our new subdivision regulations to ghost plat it or shadow plat, and that term is used for showing how those lots could be further subdivided within the existing density in that area in order to preclude a house being built where a natural road would come through or easements or so forth. And we factor that in as part of our decision making. But it's like any other subdivision, it's difficult to broad rush and say, yes, we would approve a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 at this point. We need to see where it's at in relation to all the other infrastructure and surrounding land uses.
Well, we have only 4 commissioners here. I'm not sure it's worth discussing too much more today, but I wonder if we can bring this up at a future meeting, if you could do a half a page of just some bullets as to how this would really flesh out.
I'm more than happy to do that. I would like to have more of a detailed discussion. I just thought that it would be good to get initial feel, see from the commission. I think it would be very helpful also is to get an overall map of certain parts that are outside of our city limits to give you the existing land use pattern, to let you see what a 5-lot subdivision is. You can go up and you can look at Maury Bang. In essence, a section of land at 10 acres is 640 acres. That's 64 lots that you could put in there. What did 64 lots look like in a section of land? I think, when you look at a land use, look at an aerial and kind of cut that out and say natural road patterns for that, I think you'll be surprised how high that density is. And then you compare that to the existing and the surrounding area and say, is this really what we want to do? Do we want to have a perpetual carving, or do we want to say urban development should be in an urban area, rural needs to be rural in nature in the existing? And that's the question. That's a philosophical question that needs to be discussed. Do we want to or do we not? And I'm just bringing that question up because that's a natural discussion after you establish where your urban service boundary would be.
Well, maybe for the next meeting, a half dozen bullets, putting a little more flesh on the concept would be helpful. Anybody else want to comment on this for the time being? Okay, before we adjourn, Ed, for this next meeting now, these 9 items that we've looked at today, do we need to reopen or have another public hearing on those 9 items? Or can we simply meet and take action on those 9?
You need to have the official one for it. You can incorporate, obviously, all of the statements that have been said. In essence, this is not an official meeting, so you need to have that official meeting. If anybody here wants to reattend, they can. Otherwise, their testimony, whatever they said, will be factored in as part of the decision-making. So, in essence, we have not had an official meeting, so we still need to have an official public hearing. That would be my opinion on it. I don't know if Matt differed.
No, I would concur with Mr. Corton that we would need to have a public hearing on these matters with a quorum so that the commission can take action on the matter.
Okay. Thanks, you guys, for being here.
Mr. Chairman, I do, if you want to entertain, Steve Josephson, our planner, would like to just briefly talk about some issues with respect to the county. If you want to stay around, if you guys have other things, you can do that, but he had requested that, and if, we'll ask him to be brief and concise.
That would be good, Steve.
Good morning, Steve Josephson. I'm the county city planner, and I'm here in my capacity as county planner today. I just wanted to give you a brief update. Chairman Jackson had referred to this in the previous discussion about the county's zoning code amendments. Just wanted to let the city know that the county is going to be having a public hearing on revised zoning code on the 27th of September at 3 o'clock. It's in the county commission chambers, a zoning board. This will be coming before the planning and zoning board for the county. And then if they recommend approval, it'll go on to the county commission the following Tuesday for their discussion and action. What I'm proposing to the planning and zoning board is to have 3 categories that are agricultural, residential in nature. The first one would be an agricultural district with a minimum of 40 acres. The next one would be a agricultural residential district with a minimum of 10 acres. And then a residential rural one with a minimum of 5 acres. Some of the other highlights of this, I'm proposing to have a planned unit development overlay district similar to what's in the city's statute. Also the adoption of a floodplain overlay ordinance, crew camp regulations that are similar to what the city and other local governments in this part of North Dakota have adopted. And we're also looking at some changes to the subdivision regulations to bring them up to date. And that concludes my comments as the county planner. So if you have any questions for me, I'm here to answer them.
You know, the only thing I would add is that I could tell the rest of you that the county is really appreciating the fact that they now have a planner. It's just bringing a lot of organization to that effort and frankly taking a lot of the workload off individual county zoning board members and other staff. So it's been good to have Steve. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you very much.
Okay, our non-meeting is adjourned.